All right, good morning, everyone. And I'm I'm having a little problem pulling up my executive director's report, so I'll do my best without my notes here. One thing I wanted to report on is that yesterday we had a really wonderful, oh, thank you, Julie. We had a really wonderful meeting with local district court judges, Brett Buckley and Sam Meyer. It was a small group, but we had some really great discussions about some of the work that they've been doing in their court, really focused on making sure that the people who participate in court experience equitable outcomes, a lot of work in the community. It was really inspiring, and I hope maybe something that you all can read about in Bar News sometime in the year to come. In February, we completed our first in-person bar exam since the pandemic. We hosted a little over 332 folks. And by and large, it was very boring and uneventful, which is exactly what we aim for. And now we turn to planning the summer exam. I also wanted to note that we've been following along with changing public health guidance, and we will be dropping our mask requirement for the bar office and for any events in King County on March 12th, following guidance from King County changing and from the governor changing. In terms of any events that are outside of King County, we'll be determining what our protocols are on a case-by-case basis, depending on what local health guidance is. And of course, this is subject to change if the guidance changes. So we expect that it'll be a little bit of a different thing every time we come together. I also wanted to talk a little bit about ethos. As President Tollefson said, we've had 2 meetings so far, and currently I'm working on scheduling presenters for our next 2 meetings, which are Friday, March 25th and Saturday, April 23rd. One thing I wanted to highlight for the governors, luckily we've gotten a lot of responses. There's a lot of willingness to come and chat with you all from different bar associations. One bar that I suspect you all very much want to hear from is the California bar, which is not available to come March 25th, but is interested in speaking with you. I wanted to note that currently the April 23rd meeting is planned to be a full day of stakeholder input. However, I also think that might be a good day to bring in California, perhaps another presenter. So right now the meeting's scheduled to go from 9 to 4 p.m. I'm considering either extending the meeting by an hour so we can still have a full day of presentations and comments from the public, or if there's not a high volume of public comment, we may be able to finish on our normal schedule. So if you have any concerns or other suggestions for how to fit in all the speakers, please let me know. I'm going to ask Sarah, our Chief Communications Officer, if she wouldn't mind talking a little bit about, speaking of stakeholder input, some of the outreach that we have planned and that we've already undertaken to try to get folks educated and able to come and give you their input.
So trying to be more general and not super exhaustive in the interest of time. I want to say that ethos is our number one. This is what's happening in the bar. Please at least be aware of it. Even better, please come get your input. And so overall, pretty much in every regular communication we send out, which is bar news, our take note, updates, our section newsletters, on our listserv to local county bars, we have bigger and smaller reminders as events come along. So we've been telling them in general what's happening, giving specific updates about particular meetings, sending the links to the recordings, and just generally asking people to be aware, to know what's going on. I want to give some kudos to our outreach specialist, Mike Kroner, who's here. Again, he's really working with local county bars to say, this is happening, please let us know if you want us to come and speak to it. He was taken up on that offer last Friday, a few of our officers and Tara and governors were able to go speak to that local county bar, which was a wonderful connection point. We have meetings coming up with the spring sections meeting will be there. The NBA leaders meeting is coming together. So we're just really trying to be present and make sure at the very least everyone is aware of what is going on. We are also planning a special spread for bar news in June, really focused on what's at stake and how people can participate. So stay tuned for that. We are working currently on a video that's going to be, it will be under 10 minutes. It's a lot of information in 10 minutes, but we're calling it like an explainer video. And so hopefully we can make that available to you and to everybody else to at least just say, in a very quick format, tell me what's going on, what's at stake, and how I can get involved. And so, like I said, our goal is just that by August, I would like every single member to at least know this is happening, that something is at stake, and that their feedback is really valuable in the process. So if you have ideas about who to speak to, who would like to know more information, please let us know, and we are happy to hit the road and go out there and answer questions and get feedback.
Thank you. One other thing I wanted to report, at our last ethos meeting, there was a suggestion from one of the section leaders that in addition to the minutes that we usually produce, it would be a best practice to produce a list of motions with the exact language of the motion and the actions taken. And I thought that was a good suggestion. I've consulted with general counsel. We don't have any concerns. So I'm happy to start implementing that with this meeting. Unless there are any concerns, people can let me know. And then lastly, I just wanted to remind everyone that we are about to elect some new governors at large pretty soon. We have races in, I think, District 10 and District 2. Yes. And later on in the agenda, we had a late added agenda item for an emergency bylaw change. One of the things that's complicating the election this year is redistricting. Although redistricting, and so we are required to follow the state districts. And although redistricting has been completed, we have not been able to get our hands on the data yet. Normally we're required to measure eligibility as of March 1st. We did pull voter lists as of March 1st, but we know they are inaccurate because they don't reflect the new districts. So we'll be asking for an emergency bylaw change later in the day to use a different date that we can determine eligibility after we've been able to update our member data. That's it for me. There's more in my executive director report, which appears at page 54 in the regular materials, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for our executive director?
Thank you.
Governor Stevens.
Thank you.
Governor Stevens.
Yes, thank you. And Tara, so I'm just kind of curious regarding this, and that is, do you think the election calendar will be impacted by not having the information you need for what the actual districts are?
Thank you. That's a good question. We sincerely hope not. Our goal is to not have it be impacted. In particular, we think it's important to maintain the staggered elections for the district and the at-large. So that's sort of our top priority, is to maintain that staggering. If we have to push it out, we will. But our goal is to not have to impact the election dates themselves. And just so you know, there's a lot of backstory here, but it's quite a convoluted path for the data to get to us. And so we've sort of moved to plan B because we don't have certainty that we'll get the data through the normal channels. We just have no certainty as to when that would be. So we're going to be moving to doing a more manual process.
And I haven't looked at the provision that you were talking about, but I'm just wondering, given the circumstances, if you don't have the data that you need, in good faith, can't we just run the election based on the districts as we know them to be and maintain our, and maintain our election calendar and get on with life?
I believe the answer is no, and it might be because it's in the State Bar Act, but I'm going to see if General Counsel Shanklin or perhaps Paris Erickson can help me out.
Any other questions from, okay. General Counsel Shanklin, do you have a response for Governor Stevens?
Well, so there are several interrelating authorities, including the state constitution. So we looked at the state constitution that talks about the timeline. Once the legislature has approved the redistricting plan, it is the law. So it is in effect. And then we looked at the State Bar Act that says that, the governors have to reside in their districts. And so, they have to reside in their districts in compliance with the law. So there's that. And then there are some statements in the bylaws that also apply. So it's interesting. And I don't know the answer to whether the data flow is slower this year. It only happens every 10 years. And so I'm not aware of exactly how it occurred the last time. But just those are the places and the authorities that we looked at: the state constitution, the State Bar Act, and the bylaws.
Mr. President, may I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I just heard you talk about where the governors have to reside, and I guess I'm also wondering, so it's two different questions. One is where they reside and who the voters are. And so I'm going to push a little bit more, meaning if we have at least the report from what's been adopted by the legislature in terms of the contours of the congressional districts, and we overlay that with who the candidates are, unless you have tweener candidates, it is likely that all the candidates will be, you can superimpose and find out that they are smack dab or very much clearly within the district that's being elected. And then the only question is who the voters might be, but again, in good faith. So I'm just trying to ask questions so that we're not just stuck and stuck in a way that also would then have a cascading effect on the at-large governor race that's supposed to follow.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand your question, but I will try and answer it. And then Paris and everyone else who's here can supplement or correct me. So I don't think we're having an issue with tweener candidates. We're having an issue potentially with tweener voting lists. And so what we have done so far is determined which zip codes are completely within the new districts and which zip codes are split. And that's the manual process that the executive director was talking about. We will engage in a process to determine the correct voter lists for those zip codes that, as you said, contain tweeners. I'm not sure that people would like to be labeled that way, but anyway, so that is the reason why we think we can go forward and hopefully can complete that process so that the congressional district elections, and of course it's 2 and 10, right? And then the at-large positions are elected all around the state. And so that there's less concern there. And so if we're able to complete this process, we can maintain the sequencing of the 2 elections. Is that what you asked? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. And maybe what you can then figure out, I mean, I guess your manual would then not have to be a manual of every voter, but just those where their zip codes appear to be now split by the new lines. And that would be the amount of people you would actually be manually either saying eligible or not eligible, and then counting those votes. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on this topic or any other topic from the executive director's report? I don't see any hands up. Any hands in the room?